stupid mistakes that finally stopped serial killers. Dennis Nilsen. In 1983, a plumber in London was called to investigate a blocked drain at a quiet apartment building. The smell was unbearable. When he opened the access panel, he didn't find grease or hair. He found chunks of human flesh. That's how Dennis Nilsen, one of the UK's most disturbing serial killers, got caught. Not because police tracked him, not because he left a note. He got caught because his victims clogged the plumbing. Nilsen had murdered at least 12 men and boys, storing their bodies in his flat. When decomposition made the smell unbearable, he tried to flush parts of the corpses down the toilet. Yes, he literally tried to solve a murder with plumbing. His landlord called the plumber called the police. And Nilsen? He calmly led officers into his apartment, where they found body parts in bags, under floorboards, and in a tea chest. One officer asked where the rest of the body was. Nilsen answered, "In the cupboard. Jerry Brudos." When police raided the home of Jerry Brudos in 1969, they didn't just find evidence of murder, like they found a closet full of women's shoes. That might not sound strange, until you realize none of them belonged to his wife. Brudos had an obsession with high heels, not wearing them, stealing them, and eventually killing women to take their shoes. Between 1968 and 1969, he murdered at least 4 women in Oregon, keeping souvenirs like shoes and underwear, and photographing their bodies after death. His mistake? He kept everything: trophies, photos, journals. But what truly doomed him was a pair of shoes left in plain sight, seen by a visiting teenager who later tipped off the police. Investigators searched his garage and found not only the trophies, but a freezer containing a human foot inside a high heel. During interrogation, Brudos couldn't help but talk. For hours, he gave up every detail, including how he lured victims by pretending to be a photographer. His confessions filled volumes. He died in prison decades later, but his legacy? A killer brought down by a closet full of heels, and his inability to shut up. Joel Rifkin. In 1993, police weren't chasing Joel Rifkin because they knew he was a serial killer. They pulled him over because his pickup truck didn't have a license plate. That's it. Inside the truck, they immediately noticed a horrible smell. Then they opened the back and found the decomposing body of a woman, just lying there. Rifkin had already killed 17 women in New York, mostly sex workers. He dismembered some, dumped others in rivers or woods, and thought no one would ever connect the dots. He had no nickname, no tabloid name, no FBI profile. Just a rotting corpse in a truck and the arrogance to drive around without a plate. The irony? He later told police he had just forgotten to put it back on after washing the car. When police searched his home, they found driver's licenses, jewelry, and other trophies from the victims. His sentencing was easy, 203 years in prison. But the thing that started it all? A simple traffic stop, and a killer who didn't think details mattered. Angel Maturino Resendiz, known as the Railroad Killer, crossed U.S. borders illegally multiple times. But that's not what got him caught. It was his own sister, and a single fingerprint. Resendiz murdered at least 15 people in the late 90s, mostly near train tracks, breaking into homes to kill at random. He'd sneak aboard freight trains and hop between states, vanishing without a trace. But his downfall came from one mistake. He left a bloody fingerprint on a windowsill after killing a schoolteacher in Texas. The print matched one on file with immigration, because Resendiz had been deported multiple times. Yes, U.S. authorities had him in custody more than once and let him go. Each time, he used fake names or gave vague answers. No one realized they were releasing a serial killer back into the country. Once the FBI realized the print was his, he became one of the most wanted men in America. But the real twist? His own sister turned him in. Tired of living in fear, she convinced him to surrender, even arranging a meeting with Texas Rangers. He was arrested peacefully, sentenced to death, and executed in 2006. Sometimes justice doesn't kick down the door. Sometimes it walks in quietly through family ties. Rodney Alcala wasn't just a serial killer, and he was also a contestant on a dating game show. Yes, a real murderer on TV, flirting for fun while bodies piled up off-screen. Between 1971 and 1979, Alcala killed at least 8 women, possibly many more. He lured victims by pretending to be a professional photographer, then assaulted and murdered them, often keeping souvenirs. But his most absurd move came in 1978, when he appeared on The Dating Game under the name Bachelor No. 1. He smiled, joked, charmed the audience, and won the date. The woman who picked him later canceled, saying she found him creepy. That gut feeling probably saved her life. Meanwhile, Alcala left trails of evidence. He used his real name to rent storage lockers, which police later found filled with photographs of unknown women and girls. When caught in 1979, he was carrying a receipt that linked him directly to one victim. He also couldn't help but represent himself in court, and questioned himself in third person. It took decades, retrials, and DNA evidence to pin everything down. But in the end, the man who once charmed America's living rooms turned out to be hiding a house of horrors. LaMarcus Devin McWills. Sometimes karma doesn't wait. In 2009, LaMarcus Devin McWills attacked a woman named Chelsea Brazier in Houston, Texas. He put her in the trunk of his car and drove off, planning to kill her. But the universe had other ideas. As he drove through a quiet road, his car got stuck in the mud, literally. Trying not to panic, he opened the trunk, pulled Chelsea out, and asked her to get in the driver's seat while he pushed the car out. What he didn't expect? She floored the gas pedal and sped off, leaving him in the mud, both literally and metaphorically. Chelsea went straight to the police. Within 2 days, McWills was arrested. DNA linked him to several other murders in the same area, and witnesses confirmed his identity by his Scales of Justice tattoo, the same one described on the killer by multiple survivors. His biggest mistake? He gave his victim the keys to escape and his freedom with it. Charles Cullen was supposed to save lives. Instead, he quietly ended dozens, maybe even hundreds of them. Between 1988 and 2003, this New Jersey nurse moved between hospitals, giving patients fatal doses of medication. He didn't choose terminal cases. He just played God. But Cullen wasn't caught by blood tests or autopsies. His downfall came from something much simpler: hospital computers. At Somerset Medical Center, the staff noticed odd patterns. Patients who weren't in Cullen's care were suddenly dying after receiving high doses of digoxin, a heart medication they hadn't been prescribed. And guess who had accessed their files minutes before their deaths? Even worse, Cullen had Googled his own crimes. Police found browser histories where he looked up drug interactions, undetectable poisons, and even news reports about mysterious hospital deaths. When questioned, Cullen folded fast, confessing to dozens of murders. His Google history was like a diary, written in crimes instead of words. Anthony Sowell thought he could hide in plain sight. Between 2007 and 2009, the Cleveland man murdered 11 women and buried them around his house, some in shallow graves in the backyard, others hidden inside walls. Neighbors constantly complained about a horrible stench, but authorities chalked it up to bad plumbing and nearby meat factories. What finally brought Sowell down? Not a dramatic tip-off or a sting operation. It was a single survivor and a bottle of lotion. Latundra Billups had escaped Sowell's home after being attacked and strangled. When she reported him to police, she described not only the house, but one small detail. He had applied lotion to her after the assault. When police entered the house with a warrant, they found the same brand of lotion in plain view. That detail, matched with her story, gave investigators enough cause to search the property fully. And that's when they made the gruesome discovery: 11 bodies hidden in walls, under stairs, and in shallow backyard graves. The killer tried to erase lives, but he couldn't erase fingerprints or a victim's memory. Kevin Fox. Sometimes the smallest oversight leaves the biggest trail. In 1996, police in Spokane, Washington were investigating the murder of 9-year-old Amber Garrett. It was a horrifying crime, and they had little to go on. No witnesses, no obvious motive, and no direct suspect. The killer had entered the family home, abducted Amber, and left almost no evidence behind. But during the search of the crime scene, detectives noticed something strange in the bathroom: a used toilet that hadn't been flushed. Disgusting? Absolutely. But also, goldmine. The police collected a sample and ran DNA tests, and incredibly, the results matched a man named Kevin Fox, who had a criminal record in another state. He had no idea that his careless bathroom visit would end up convicting him of murder. He'd taken every step to clean up the crime scene, but forgot to clean up after himself. Conrad Zdzirak. In 2010, a man robbed a bank in Ohio wearing what looked like a realistic disguise, a full-face silicone mask that made him appear to be an elderly white man, even though the suspect was young and black. Security footage showed him walking in confidently, demanding money and escaping with tens of thousands of dollars. At first glance, it looked like a perfect crime. No fingerprints, no DNA, and a face that didn't match any known suspect. But then the police made a breakthrough. They found the mask. Just a few blocks from the crime scene, someone reported a strange, rubbery object in a dumpster. When investigators recovered it, they discovered it was a hyper-realistic silicone mask made by a special effects company called SPFX. Turns out the company kept detailed records of every sale, including one that matched the exact mask used in the robbery, purchased online just weeks earlier. That purchase was tied to a name, an address, and a credit card. That's how police found Conrad Zdzirak. The man had left no trace at the bank, but his face was sitting in a trash can. So, what did we learn today? That even the most calculating killers can make unbelievably dumb mistakes, from Google searches and lotion bottles to unflushed toilets and silicone masks in the trash. No matter how smart they think they are, the smallest oversight is often what brings them down. Which of these slip-ups surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one.